Why divorce happens. There are lots of reasons that we recognise as to why a relationship breaks down. It can be incompatibility. It can be incompatibility. It can be abuse, which can be emotional or drug related, or eating disorders, or it can be so many different things. It can be cheating. But all of these things, the lack of communication, the arguments, all of those things are external reasons as to why a divorce happens. They're the symptoms, if you like, as to why a divorce happens. So what are the root causes of a divorce or a relationship breakup? One of the key things is that what I call the lie of the fairy tale. What this is we're told by society, by our carers or whatever, we've been led to believe that if you're good, if you get good grades at school, go to college, get a good job, get married, have children, get a nice house, nice car, retire, then you're going to be happy. And there can be various variations on that, depending on your own society and your own community and your own family. But if you follow a pattern, this is what we expect for you, then you're going to be happy and you're going to meet everybody's needs. The problem is that it doesn't happen that way, does it? If you've been if you already had a relationship breakup or a divorce, you know that that doesn't happen. And even if you're in one of those scenarios, one of those situations, you also know that it isn't as simple as it's made out to be, that there can be, life happens, doesn't it? Life changes us, events happen, and we don't always respond together as a couple, and we can respond differently, and that brings its challenges. The other lie, if you like, or problem that people believe in or that's been fed to us is that if we find that right person, if we find the one, if we find our Prince Charming or our Princess Charming or our Queen, then everything's going to fall into place and we're going to be happy together and live happily ever after. And as many people are discovering, there can be a number of ones, because we change and we grow, and we want different things as life goes on. So one of the reasons divorce happens is because we can go in with these expectations as to what it's going to be like, what we've been told it's been like. And then when it doesn't work out, we're very confused and start to look at other things that might actually fill that confusion, or fill that gap. So the lie of the fairy tale that is a really fundamental reason as to why a lot of divorces can happen, because we go in with those expectations, we go in with those those understandings, and we want to keep people happy. Perhaps, the people pleasing can be part of it. We think if we're going to do that, then everything's going to work out. So, but the problem with that is we're looking to the external for our happiness, and we're not looking at how we can make ourselves happy. And because we're not doing that, we can go into a relationship looking for, maybe having high expectations. If this person is the one, then they're going to fulfill all these needs. And people are human, people make mistakes, people don't meet those expectations, people can't stay on a pedestal, and maybe each time they're seen as falling short, then a little bit more resentment builds, and a little bit more resentment, and a little bit more, until there's a problem. There can also be a situation where low expectations are set, where people that say, well, I'll settle for this. this is comfortable, this is okay. I know it's not ideal, but I'll settle. And again, those resentments start to build. But it also means, and the problem with that one as well, is that it can affect our sense of self, our self-worth. And over time, the value that we have for ourselves can get undermined consistently until we end up feeling we don't know who we are. And again, you can reach the crisis point. The reality is that divorce happens because we feel boxed in by, sometimes we just don't know what. And we're not happy with ourselves, and the other person isn't providing that happiness. So why does that happen? People change over time, and the responses change, life happens. And if we're trying to keep it in that box, keep it safe, we're holding back that change. The other thing that can happen is if you are in or people are in a codependent relationship, that can make a big difference as well. And this is much more common than a lot of people perhaps realize, because what we do when we go into a codependent relationship is we expect the other person to fill in the gap where we feel inadequate in some way, or where we feel we don't have the skills, if you like. So, for example, it might be that somebody who is really good at sorting out finances is with somebody who actually isn't that bothered about sorting out the finances and really doesn't like that side of it. So they're happy to let that person do that. Or it might be that one person is very practical and organized and the other person is a little bit more random, a little bit more scattered, if you like, or just allows things to be a little bit more easily. And that's fine while they fit together. But over time, if one person changes and says, I'd like to know a bit more about the finances, and the other person feels threatened by that and feels they're losing control, that can cause a problem. Or if the other person says, well, look, I'm doing all these, it might not be finance, it could be anything. I'm responsible for this. It might be cleaning the house, or it might be taking the children to activities, or any number of things. If I'm seen as the person who I'd like to spread the load a bit, and the other person doesn't want to, then of course there's friction there, and there's an imbalance. What happens then is people will either push it under the carpet, and resentment builds, when eventually at some point it'll pop, or they'll have arguments along the way, or they both accept, communicate and change, which is the ideal, of course, or they part ways. And if they part ways without one or other than wanting to change in any way, then they will look for another partner who fills in that gap and helps them to feel more in control or feel more comfortable. So for looking at all of these different things, what we're saying is that divorce happens because we feel boxed in, because life changes, because what we need changes, what we want changes. And if the other person doesn't, if we can't do that together, then there's a parting of the ways at some point or another. And if you can let somebody else have their freedom to change and do what they want to do and be who they want to be, what you're actually doing is you're setting yourself free as well. So that's a few of the reasons, the underlying reasons as to why divorce happens.